I gotta make sure ain't no music in my video. Hey y'all, hey everybody. Happy Saturday. So this is your mental health moment. Your 5-minute mental health moment. But it's probably gonna be longer than 5 minutes. So hi guys. I hope you are having an amazing Saturday. Let me know what y'all doing. It's cold and rainy. I was out and about, but I'm about to go in. I need a nap. I was up early. I need a nap. But I was out and about running some errands or whatever. Ooh, let me show y'all my bath salts. Cause I hope y'all out here taking y'all spiritual bath salt in these spiritual streets. So look at my bath salts, y'all. I got, what is this? Pink Himalayan sea salt and avocado. So yeah, and then I have this coconut oil. It's the truth, if I must say so myself. So hey y'all, hey. So today we're gonna talk a little bit about cognitive dissonance, okay? So, oh wait, hold on. Let me give y'all the, oh, I don't know where my phone is. I want to give y'all the psychiatric meaning of cognitive dissonance, and then I'm gonna break it down for y'all, okay? So the title of the video is cognitive dissonance and how it keeps us settling our relationships. So y'all know that I am all about normalizing healthy, sexy relationships, right? And with normalizing healthy, sexy relationships, we can no longer settle in our relationships. Like, we not settling in the 2021, right? So a lot of times I like to talk about things that keep us stuck in our relationships, right? And a lot of times what I realize is that people settle. They settle in their relationships because they think that there's nothing else better out there. But I'm here to let y'all know it is, right? So a lot of times we settle in our relationships because we feel as though there's nobody else out there. We think that we can't find our dream girl, when in reality we can. Our dream girl or our dream guy, right? But in reality we can, right? So I like to dispel that whole like mindset of kind of like settling in our relationships. And what settling looks like is basically accepting something that is beneath what it is that you really want, right? Or accepting the mindset that we can't actually find what it is that we want in a relationship, right? Now, in a relationship, there should be a degree of compromise, right? Absolutely, positively, in your relationships, there should be a compromise, right? But when we begin to settle, that means we are allowing ourselves to become comfortable with things that don't really serve our highest purpose, right? So there's a difference between settling in a relationship and compromise, right? So compromise means that I give a little, you give a little, I give a little, you give a little, right? So that's very, very important. Compromise means that we're both giving up a little something, right? But we're both giving something, right? Settling means it ain't the way it's supposed to be, but we stay anyway, right? And a lot of us have learned certain behaviors since the time that we were a child, right? So it makes it easy for us to settle in our relationships. Some of us may not have seen the healthiest examples of it. Y'all, let me remind y'all, we came here to fuck shit at. We came to fuck shit at. But some of us, we didn't see the healthiest examples of relationships, right? So with that being the case, we don't always have an idea of what a healthy relationship should look like, right? Or how to function in a healthy relationship. So I'm here to help y'all, right? Because I honestly believe that we should be happy in our relationships, right? Because our relationships make up a huge part of our lives, a huge part of our existence, right? Because the Bible says that God said it wasn't good for a man to be alone, right? So that means that all throughout our lives, we are going to be forming relationships, right? Right. So a lot of us have dealt with dysfunctional relationships, be it romantic relationships, platonic relationships with our friends, dysfunctional relationships with our parents, and things of that nature. And during this time in our lives, it's time for us to start healing our relationships. Well, first of all, healing ourselves, right? Healing ourselves. And then once we heal ourselves, we can go into relationships that are more healthy, right? So on this channel, I am all about healing, right? So first of all, healing yourselves from things that happen. A lot of times, things happen in our childhood. And then what I also recognized and realized while going through my spiritual awakening is that some things are just within us, and it has nothing to do with our upbringing. It has nothing to do with our childhood, but in actuality, it's a soul wound, right? When I started my spiritual awakening, I began to believe that we are reincarnated, right? I don't believe that you live one time, you die, you go to heaven, and then like that's it for you. I don't believe that, right? So with that being the case, that means our souls have experienced and gone through certain things before. And I believe that certain things that may have happened to us, say in a past life or something like that, we still feel the residue of those things, right? So with that being the case, sometimes we have certain things that our soul can recall, and it affects us in our current state, right? Our current state of being. So we need to heal those soul wounds. We need to recognize what things are soul wounds, right? So a soul wound may be like, say for me, for example, I'll use myself as an example. Like I realized that I had some issues with abandonment, right? But I couldn't really pinpoint in my childhood where I had ever been abandoned, right? I also realized that I suffered from, I don't, not at all times in my lives, but at certain points in my lives, I realized that there was a certain level of loneliness, right? There, in deep within, right? And how I came to those conclusions was by labeling my feelings, right? So I'm really big on labeling your feelings, meaning whenever you're going through something, talking your way through it, or even if you can't do it yourself, with the professional, just kind of like labeling like what it is that you feel, right? And sometimes you will realize that the emotion that you feel in a certain situation doesn't necessarily match the situation, right? So say, for instance, if you get into an argument with a friend and you feel abandoned or you feel rejected or something of that nature, but you don't they didn't reject you. They didn't abandon you. You know what I'm saying? So then you have to kind of like, and I'm walking you guys through my how I healed, right? So what you do is you start to label your feelings, right? Because feelings are not bad, emotions are not bad, but at times, the way, depending on how it is that we were raised, we may have been raised to believe that emotions are bad. A lot of us, we believe that our emotions are scary, right? Why do we believe that they're scary? We believe that if I give in to this emotion, it is going to be so big that like it's just going to overtake me, and I just can't, right? And I had put this on a post before. I don't think I ever taught on it, but I'm like, the trauma that you went through was worse than the emotion that you feel as a result of that trauma, right? So I believe that my tribe is a tribe of warriors, in that you survived the trauma, right? So the trauma is actually bigger and worse than the actual emotion, right? But because our brain always wants to, our brain and our ego, they work together to help us stay in a good place, right? To stay protected. So our brain does not want to feel any negative emotions, right? So our brain will trick us into believing that, like, oh my God, like if I tap into this feeling, if I give into this feeling, like that's just gonna be it. That's just gonna be the end of me. Like I just can't, right? Meanwhile, like some of us have lived through like the most horrific situations, the most horrific forms of abuse, right? And a lot of times we start to experience abuse as a child, right? Because as a child, you are vulnerable, right? You're your most vulnerable whenever you're a child. And a lot of times our abuse will trap us in a childlike state, right? So we'll go through something, say at 5 years old, and that can stunt our growth emotionally. It doesn't always come out in every single area of our lives, right? But in certain areas of our lives, we can realize that, like, damn, like I'm still that 5-year-old, right? Because the abuse or the trauma caused a stagnation in your growth in that particular area, right? So that's why it is that sometimes we're like little kids in grown people bodies, right? So anyway, back to labeling your feelings so we can get to what cognitive dissonance is, right? So, and then I can get on out of here. So, you want to label those feelings, label those emotions. Emotions are not bad, you guys. Emotions are not bad. But like I said, depending on how it is that we were raised, some of us were raised in a household where it was okay to feel our emotions. It was okay to cry. It was okay to be happy, sad. You know, emotions have a range. You know, you can't just stay in one particular emotion all the time. But depending on the household that you were raised in, like they may have made you feel like, oh, it's bad to be sad. It's bad to cry, especially if you're a male. Like you definitely wasn't allowed to cry if you were a male, or be, you know what I mean, like emotional, like fully like in your emotional body, right? So for some of us, it may be hard for us to kind of like tap into our emotions, right? And that's not a bad thing. It's just a result of how it is that we were raised, if we were abused, if we have trauma still, right? So trauma is your response to abuse, or trauma is your response to an event that was hurtful, right? And a lot of times we will stuff those situations because emotionally it's almost like if your emotions are like a tidal wave, right? But you really only have the capacity to deal with them. Say your capacity is only that of a what do I want to say, a glass, right? right? So you can deal with it in part, right? So then what happens to the rest of it? It gets stuffed down, tucked away somewhere, right? And if you can imagine a glass compared to like a tidal wave, like, you know how much water encompasses a tidal wave? And you're only dealing with like 8 ounces of that tidal wave, right? So that's what happens when we don't deal with our traumas and we just stuff them, right? And I say stuff them because it's like, I don't have time to deal with this. I'm not going to deal with this. I can't deal with this, right? But the emotion is still there, right? So um, labeling your feelings allows you to understand what exactly it is that you're feeling in the moment, right? And it allows you to embrace your emotions because it's okay. And it's okay to embrace your feelings, right? So, in me learning how to label my emotions, I started to realize that certain things that I felt in response or in reaction to a certain event didn't necessarily line up with what it was that was going on, right? So then I'm like, well, oh Lord, where did this come from? Because clearly it's all up in there. Because clearly when I go through certain things, I feel certain things, I feel certain emotions. So like, where does this come from, right? So God started to talk to me about soul wounds, right? So that is, I would almost dare to say, like, that's when I really started believing in reincarnation, because I'm just like, yo, like, some of this stuff doesn't resonate. It doesn't line up with my current life, right? So where is this coming from, right? So anyway, the way that God deals with me is I will have a thought. So I think, right? I will have a thought, and I will start to be like, you know what, I really think I believe this, you know? And a part of getting delivered from a narcissist is learning to trust yourself, trust your intuition, trust your emotions, trust your feelings, right? Validate your feelings, validate your emotions, right? Validate how it is that you see certain things, right? We're going to come back to that. So we're going to stick a pin in it. Boop, right? Because I'm going to also let you know how important validating your feelings, validating your intuition, trusting yourself, trusting your gut, trusting your discernment, however you want to say it. I'm going to get back to why that is so important in being able to dispel cognitive dissonance, right? So a lot of times we will have soul wounds, which are wounds that we may have experienced, say, in a past life, something that happened in a past life, right? So I realized that a large part of my abandonment issues were not necessarily from this particular lifetime, but something that I experienced, tragedy that I experienced in a past life, right? And then we'll come into this lifetime, and then we'll start to experience situations that will mimic what it is that we went through in a past life, right? And that causes us to kind of like act out, and we feel as though it's a valid feeling and it's a valid emotion, right? It's like, okay, I feel like this about this particular situation, and you feel very justified in feeling a certain kind of way about a certain situation, which is fine, right? Because we teach self-love and we teach self-compassion. Self-compassion means that, like, I'm compassionate with myself, and I let it be, and I'm okay with how it is that I feel. I'm okay with how it is that I react to a certain situation, because it's not bad, right? I don't condemn myself. Like, I love myself, and I accept everything about me, right? The good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Who teaches us how to do that? God, right? And the reason why not solely, that's not the word I want to use. The reason why I can appreciate spirituality over religion is because I feel as though once you get into spirituality, your walk with God becomes more personal. And when your walk with God becomes more personal, you no longer live under the condemnation of laws and rules and regulations, right? Now, I believe that religion is the bridge to spirituality, right? You can't just wake up one day and don't have any spiritual basis at all and become spiritual. I really believe that religion segues us into spirituality, right? Like that's the foundation. That's the foundation, right? So I don't shade religion. Let me be clear, because people like to mince my words. I don't shade religion. I believe that we need religion first to teach us certain first of all, to acknowledge a higher power, right? And I don't want to be put in a box. I don't want to be put in a box, right? So I want to be able to speak to people who have different religious beliefs, right? And I want them to be able to grasp and understand what it is that I'm saying. So I'm never shading religion at all whatsoever. But I feel like spirituality is more empowering in that when you go through your spiritual awakening, you get in touch with your higher power in a different way, in a more personalized way, right? And you start to realize that it's not your works and your acts and the things that you do right that are going to necessarily put you in good standing with God, right? I believe that spirituality takes you back to the fact that God loves you no matter what, right? And religion doesn't believe that, right? They believe that you have to do this and this and this and this and this and this and this in order to be in right standing with God. And I would challenge people to believe that, like, what if when God created me, he was proud, right? What if when God created me, he stood back and was like, yo, this is just dope. Like, this is just dope, right? How would you feel about yourself, right? How would you feel about your life if you did not live under scrutiny of yourself, right? If you didn't believe that, like, oh, if I don't do all of these things, I don't measure up, right? Now, I'm not saying that with spirituality is a hall pass or a free pass to sin or live your life however it is that you want. But I believe with spirituality, you come into such a loving relationship with God personally that you want to do right. You just choose to do right because you're just like, oh my God, that's my daddy. He loves me. Like, why wouldn't I want to do right? Right? He thinks the world of me. So why wouldn't I want to do any and everything that he asks me to do, right? So that, I believe, is what spirituality brings you into, right? So I said all that to say I'm not shading religion. And I said all that to say that spirituality is very important because it gets you back to understanding who it is that you are from a more loving perspective, right? Like I referenced the other day when I did my video, like if you're an artist and you create something, you're not going to step back and be like, oh my God, like I hate that. Like, oh, like why would I ever do such a, why would I ever create such a thing? You know what I'm saying? You're not gonna abuse something that you created. Like, you're happy, you're proud about it, right? Unless, of course, like I said, you don't love yourself, right? So spirituality, I believe, takes us into a mindset that we're beautifully and woefully made, as the Bible says, right? And that kind of takes some of the pressure off of us, and it allows us to view God in a more loving sense, right? Now, God is a God of wrath. He gonna get you. He gonna get you if you don't do right. But I think people will feel more empowered if they realize that, like, I'm not striving every day to prove my worth to God, right? Um, if I already know that I'm worthy, I live my life a certain way, right? And it's not robbery to know that I'm worthy and I'm loved first. I'm worthy and I'm loved. Like imagine if you viewed yourself as worthy and loved first and foremost before you set any expectations for yourself, right? Before you get into a mode of I need to do this on this day and this way and da 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 da. Doesn't it just feel better to say I'm worthy and I'm loved, right? I'm worthy and I'm loved. I'm worthy and I'm loved. So I want to let y'all know y'all are worthy and you are loved, right? Um, and that just kind of takes some of the pressure off, right? And then it puts you in a space where you're just like, I just naturally want to praise God, right? Because what he's requiring of me, spirituality starts to let you know that, like, some of the things that we feel that we're required to do, because it's what religion dictates, we start to realize that, ooh, I'm gonna get in trouble by the Christians. Ooh, I'm gonna get in trouble. I'm gonna get in trouble by everybody, but whatever. We start to realize that I don't have to live my life by these sets of rules in order to be considered worthy, right? Worthy of the best, worthy of what's good, right? I believe that that automatically sets you up to want to do what's right with less pressure, right? Like pressure feels different. Pressure puts you in a totally different mindset, right? Like, say for instance, people that take tests, right? There are some people, like, they get test anxiety because they have to take a test. And some people, like, they know the subject matter, they know everything, but it's just the fact that they have to sit down and take this test that just wrecks all of that. Like, some people fail tests because of the test anxiety, but yet and still you already know all the answers. You know what I'm saying? So that's my little spill on spirituality. I feel like it takes off some of the pressure, which puts you in a different mindset, which automatically sets you up for success. Right. All right. So, worthiness, right? Lack of self-worth will put us in a mindset of settling, meaning I don't find myself worthy enough to have everything that my heart desires. Childhood could teach us that. And the way that that looks is, if I'm a child and I was raised to believe, and this happens a lot, right? And I can speak on issues that are soul wounds, but I can also speak on issues that have been derived from childhood because I've worked with children who have been in abusive families, neglectful families, children that have been raised by narcissistic parents, and what exactly that looks like, right? So a narcissistic mother is going to put her needs above the needs of her child, right? And what that in turn looks like is a child who puts their needs on a back burner in order to please their parent. And in one of my videos, we talked about how what was the word that I used? Survival? I think it was survival. How survival trumps authenticity, right? And what that looks like is when you're a child, you realize that your parents are responsible for your survival, right? And if I do something to upset my parent, or I do something that my parent doesn't agree with, that can in turn jeopardize, this is how we interpret it, that in turn can jeopardize my survival. That may or may not be true. In some situations it will, and in some situations it may not, but how your parent interacts with you is the reason why your mind, especially as a little person, why it is that your mind would kind of like get in a mindset, right? So I said all that to say that is how we formulate this mindset that people pleasing is more honorable than honoring ourselves, right? So when you're raised that way, and I believe, yeah, when we're raised that way, especially to the extreme, we will carry that over into our adulthood, right? I believe that coming out of a narcissistic relationship victoriously kicks us into a spiritual awakening. Why? Because in order to get out of a narcissistic relationship, we have to come into such a deep level of self-love in order to be courageous enough to walk away from a narcissist. Because most of us, like the title of my video, I said the narcissist empath paradigm. And what that is the toxic tangle that empaths and narcissists do, because most narcissists prey on empaths, right? Because as empaths, we're very feeling, we're very connected to our emotions. We care about people's feelings. We can relate to other people. We can understand them, things of that nature, right? That makes us fall victim to narcissists, right? They prey on that. They prey on our ability to be very caring, to be understanding, to be flexible, to be a people pleaser, to seek validation within our relationships versus within ourselves. Our need to seek validation outside of ourselves, right? Versus internal validation. When you go on a true self-love journey, you start to realize that you are worthy, but you realize that from an internal point of view, right? You realize that, like, I am worthy and I am wonderful first because God said, period. Like, period, right? Like, right from the jump, God thinks I'm dope, right? So when you start to really grasp that and understand that, then you start to increase your self-love and you start to increase your worthiness to yourself, right? So you no longer are looking for your relationships to make you feel worthy or to make you feel loved, because you can find that love within yourself, right? That only comes from a true encounter with God, okay? Okay, so cognitive dissonance in our relationships. So basically, the psychiatric definition for cognitive dissonance, I'm gonna read it for y'all, and then I'm gonna give y'all like not the broke down. Not the broke down. That's not what I meant. Then I'm gonna break it down for y'all in layman's terms, right? And what it looks like in a relationship. So hold on one second. All right, so the definition of cognitive dissonance is the state of having inconsistent thoughts, beliefs, or attitudes, especially as relating to behavioral decisions and attitude changes. Cognitive dissonance causes feelings of unease, tension, and people attempt to relieve this discomfort in different ways by okay, so that's where the settling comes in, right? So what that looks like in a relationship is no, let me break it down. I'm gonna give y'all another biological perspective as well. Our brain only has the ability to believe one key thing at a time, right? What I mean by that, so the definition mentioned our beliefs, right? Our attitudes and our behavior, right? So if I believe a relationship should be X, Y, and Z, right? And then I get into a relationship with a person that doesn't reflect my X, Y, and Z, right? My brain doesn't know what to do with this new information that is saying that a relationship is KJL, right? So you think it's A, B, and C, and they think it's KJL elemental P, right? So now your brain is trying to grasp how it is that I can accept this thought process or mindset that's so outside of what I really believe, like what my core values are, what my core beliefs are, right? And with that being, it's almost like from one polarity to another. So if A, B, and C is over here and HIJK elemental P is over here, the brain has no way of being able to grasp both of those concepts at the same time, right? So that's where the cognitive dissonance comes into play. The cognitive dissonance is the bridge between the A, B, C, and the elemental P, right? And to me, in the simplest terms, to break it down in the simplest way, is basically that's whenever we begin to settle and we begin to justify certain things, right? So I'm getting to a relationship with a person who believes that the relationship is supposed to be elemental P, and I believe in ABC, but they showing me elemental P, so I start to justify their elemental P in order for me to be okay and at ease with the fact that their elemental P is not lining up with my ABC, right? And a lot of times we do that in relationships. I hear it, I see it, and I know that it happens in narcissistic relationships. And let me hurry up so I can get off of here because it's been almost 40 minutes. So the way it plays out in a narcissistic relationship, using myself as an example, is that we expect certain things from our partner. We want certain things from our partner. They're not giving us these things, right? And instead of getting out of the relationship for whatever reason, and we can come back to some reasons why you would not get out of the relationship, instead of getting out of the relationship, we in turn stay in the relationship and try to conform to the elemental P. And a lot of times that's settling. And a lot of times we start to justify bad behaviors, right? Now, this can go for a narcissistic relationship or just a relationship that doesn't serve our highest good, right? Because everybody isn't a narcissist. Some people are clinically, they meet the criteria of the DSM-5, which is what we use to diagnose mental health disorders. They literally meet the criteria of a narcissist, right? Some people have narcissistic traits and tendencies, but they're not clinically a narcissist, right? And we could call those or we can deem those relationships toxic relationships, right? Or we can deem those people toxic, right? So when we find ourselves, because I don't want to put everything, because people already hate when I use the word, I don't care. People already hate when I use the word narcissist. And I don't think that narcissism or labeling somebody a narcissist should not be done lightly, because narcissistic people are very, very sick. And a lot of times what gets rolled up into that is psychopathy, right? And sociopathy, right? And that's when you start to bring abuse into the situation. Narcissists are defined, I define it as people who lack the ability to operate in empathy. That's why they love empaths, right? But then, and it's a range, right? It's a range. Like it's like 7 different types of narcissists. So there's a range. So some people are just more blatant with their narcissistic tactics, right? And then some people actually function like they're good, upstanding people. But they're still narcissists, right? So it looks a little different. Some people are narcissists, and then you want to add some physical abuse and, just like total disregard for people's feelings. Like they don't care about people's feelings. They can't, like, they just want what they want. Like they just live their lives trying to control other people, right? And it's a scale, right? So some people are very narcissistic in nature, but they hide it very well because they look like a good, upstanding citizen. And a lot of times those are covert narcs, right? So when we're in a relationship with someone that comes off as if they are a decent, upstanding person, and a lot of times, not a lot of times, when we get in a relationship with the narcissist, they love bomb us, and that's the hook. That's how they get their hooks in us. They love bomb us, and then they switch it later, right? And that's very hard for any normal person, and they do that throughout the relationship. It's like a cycle, and that's what keeps us there. So it's like they stroke you and then they strike you. They stroke you and then they strike you, right? So 1 minute they're like building you up, the next minute they're like knocking you down, and you're trying to figure out in your mind, because that's a stroke and a strike. That's 2 different polarities. So you're fighting to understand how we went from this to this, right? And it puts our mind in a conundrum. And it puts us in a state of cognitive dissonance, right? The reason why I'm talking about cognitive dissonance is because I believe that understanding that a lot of us operate in a very cognitive dissonant state is the first, I believe, realizing that you have cognitive dissonance or you're operating in cognitive dissonance. For me personally, that was the beginning of me being able to recognize why I was getting stuck with people that were narcissists, right? And I feel like cognitive dissonance causes you to justify behaviors, overlook behaviors, override your own feelings, override your own intuition. Did I say justify bad behavior? So yeah, and that keeps us stuck in a loop, right? So once I realized that, like, oh, okay, so I'm kind of like stuck in this relationship with this person because I keep justifying their bad behavior, basically, right? And that is something that we really have to like tap out of. And if you're not able to, first of all, tap out of that justification of that person's bad behavior, you will continue to be in that cycle, right? And it's very easy to be in that cycle whenever you were raised to be a people pleaser, meaning that you put other people's needs above your own, which is taught to us when we're young. Or you find, so say you're not a people pleaser, but you have some programming that your relationships are, the success of your relationship equates to your worthiness, right? And that's a very, do I want to say toxic? Do I want to say toxic? Yeah, toxic, because it's poison. It's poison. It's poison. It's a poisonous way of thinking, right? So, recognizing cognitive dissonance in our relationships is so very, very important, because once we start to realize that I am justifying bad behavior, I'm overriding what it is that I need and want in order to appease someone. And when I say relationship, I mean romantic relationships, platonic relationships, and family relationships, right? So I'm overriding what it is that I actually feel in order to appease this person, because my goal at all costs is to be successful in this relationship, because me being successful in this relationship says to me that I am successful. Me being successful in this relationship says to me that I'm a good person, right? Me having the ability to please and make this person happy gives me my self-worth, right? But we have to find our self-worth internally first, because when we do that, when we're in a relationship that doesn't serve us, or somebody is causing us to compromise what it is that we know and believe to be true, we are when our self-worth is where it needs to be, like we don't feel like your needs are more important than my needs, right? To our own detriment. That's different from compromise, because compromise is not going to be to your own detriment, because like we said, compromise means I meet you halfway, you meet me halfway, and we're compromising. But in a narcissistic relationship, there is no compromise. They just want to control you and tell you what to do and where to go and how to do it and how to feel and all of this stuff, right? So the reason why it's so important for us to heal our cognitive dissonance is because being in a state of cognitive dissonance affects our brain. It causes trauma to our brain. And it causes us, eventually, how that plays out in our lives is that we're not happy, we're depressed, and we are indecisive. Like, we lose the ability to trust our own decision making. We lose the ability to trust that, like, yo, I can make the best decision for myself. And it sounds dramatic, but it's just the truth, right? Coming out of a narcissistic relationship, like, sometimes you don't know what's up from what's down if you don't come out of the relationship with self-love. If you don't come out of the relationship, I would dare to say properly, right? Because if you have self-love and you've been able to step out of the relationship because you've increased your self-worth, you know who you are. You know that you can trust yourself. You know that you can trust yourself to make the best decisions for you, because you know that every day you walk with God, every day God is within you and he's affecting everything it is that you do if you purpose your life to please God, right? And if you purpose your life to be spirit-led, Holy Spirit-led, right? So, I just want to encourage you guys that you are worthy of having, they just really beat up your self-esteem. They beat up your self-worth, and you find yourself feeling as if you can't do any better than them, right? So, I just want to send healing vibes. I just want to send healing vibes to those that feel broken down due to the fact that you were in a relationship with a narcissist, right? Like, they really do a number on your self-esteem. And that really causes you to doubt. And that doubt holds you back. That doubt will have you settling. That doubt will keep you stuck. Cognitive dissonance also puts us in a place, in a space where we don't make the best decisions for ourselves. Like, we know what we should do, but we don't do it. There's a disparity between what we think and what we do. Or there's a disparity in what we truly believe and our behavior. Like, I know I want to do this, but I'm not, because I'm in a state of cognitive dissonance, right? I don't trust myself, right? So it's like, I know that, for instance, I know that drinking is bad, but I believe that drinking is bad, but my behavior doesn't dictate that because I'm still drinking, right? So we have to heal our cognitive dissonance, you guys. So we have to heal our cognitive dissonance so that we can make the best choices for ourselves, right? We have to heal our cognitive dissonance so that we don't doubt that we know what to do. We have to heal our cognitive dissonance so that we don't go, no, this is how I want to say it. We got to heal our cognitive dissonance so that we don't choose behaviors that go against our true core beliefs. Okay. So I'm going to end it with that. Okay. I'm going to end it with that. So I want you guys to know that you are worthy. I want you to know that you are worthy of having the very best in life, right? And I want you guys to know that the things that you went through in your life, your traumas don't shape who it is that you are. God shapes who it is that you are, right? And when God created us, he stepped back and he said, it's good. So don't allow anybody to doubt your goodness. Don't allow anybody to doubt your goodness, okay? You got a lot of good stuff in there. Don't allow other people's words, because narcissists, I could talk all day about narcissists and what they do, but I'm not. They can really diminish our self-esteem because they utilize their words against us. They will get close to us to find out our secrets so that they can use them against us later. And that shit hurts. That shit hurts and it's traumatizing. So that's how we get stuck, right? They will learn things about us so that when we try to get out of the relationship, they can blackmail us. That keeps us stuck, right? So anytime that you find yourself in a situation where you believe one thing, but your behavior dictates another thing, or you know one thing to be true, but you justify a lie. There was one more that I wanted to say. Anyway, that's cognitive dissonance, okay? Anytime that your behaviors contradict and that's the word that I should have used, contradictory beliefs, because that's a big part of cognitive dissonance, the contradiction between two ideas, two thought forms, two belief systems, right? So anytime you're in a situation where you compromise your core beliefs to go along with something in order to ease the anxiety of that contradiction, you're in cognitive dissonance. Okay. So I want to encourage you guys, stick to your core beliefs, but you got to first identify them, right? A lot of us now as adults, we're reparenting ourselves, right? So we're learning what it is that I want, what's good, what do I really think is good, and things of that nature, right? So some of us may need to get back to understanding, like, well, what are my core beliefs? Because when you've been compromising all your life, you can lose yourself in those compromises, right? So we got to get back to, and this is where journaling is good. Journal. We got to get back to understanding what our actual core beliefs are, right? So that we know when we're going against them, right? We can't blur the lines of what we believe and our behavior, right? So we want our behavior and our beliefs to line up, because anything outside of that is cognitive dissonance, right? So I believe that recognizing that, and cognitive dissonance is so easy. It's so easy to do. Our brains, you guys, our brain does a lot to help us to deal with things outside of us that make us feel uncomfortable. So yeah, so the brain does all kinds of stuff, right? We talked about the ego the other day. The brain does a whole lot of things to shield us from pain and trauma, or anything that would keep us from feeling happy and good and calm and at peace. But when certain things happen that cause us anxiety, because it's like it doesn't sit well with us, right? That feels like anxiety. It doesn't sit well with us. And basically, internally, we are searching for a way to be just in a state of homeostasis, right? In a state of like peace and calm, right? And depending on who we are or how it is that we're raised, the levels or the lengths that we will go through in order to feel calm may vary, right? But we have to really get back to what our core beliefs are, and standing on those things, and not accepting anything less than that, right? But it begins with, first of all, knowing what your core values are, knowing what it is that you want from your relationships, what it is that you expect from those around you. And the best way to do that is from a self-love perspective, because if we don't do it from a self-love perspective, we'll still be settling, right? Because we'll still be trying to people please. We'll still feel like validation comes from something outside of us, or I could say we feel that validation comes from something external versus, first of all, being internally validated. And I feel like internal validation begins with God, okay? So I'm gonna end on that. And we less than an hour. I could talk all day about narcissists, and only because narcissists, toxic relationships, toxic people, all of that stuff. And the reason why I can is because I feel like so many of us were not set up to expect the very best and demand the very best for our lives. But we out here healing, y'all, and we normalizing healthy, sexy relationships. So with that, in order to normalize healthy, sexy relationships, we have to expect the best, right? We have to know what it is that we want from our relationships, and truly, honestly believe that we can have those things, right? So that's all I got for y'all. That's all I got for y'all. I love y'all. I love y'all. I hope y'all are having a happy Saturday. I hope in this cold, rainy, leaves blowing all over the place. I'm about to take my little boot cheeks on in. But yeah, you guys, I hope y'all are having a what I want y'all to have. I want y'all to have a boot up Saturday. I want y'all to have a boot up, snuggly Saturday. I hope y'all got somebody to snuggle with as this fall weather comes in. What they say is cuffing season. It's cuffing season. So I hope y'all cuffing if y'all want to be cuffing. But in your cuffing, no settling, okay? I love y'all so very, very much. And I will be back to see y'all maybe tomorrow. I don't know. If God give me something to give to the people, then you see me tomorrow. If not, I'm sure by Monday I'll have something for y'all, okay? So I love y'all so very, 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 very much. Share the video. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell button so you know when I post it. What else? Share the video, okay? I love you guys. Peace. I forget. You know what? I always forget how to stop this. Hold on. I forget. Oh, there we go. All right, y'all. I'm out of here. Oh, shoot. All right, y'all. I'm out here. I love y'all. Hey.